On page 238 and 239, we are going to read different accounts about women's rights to vote. So these are all historical accounts about women and gaining the right to vote. As we read on page 238, the closed reader habit says, "What does Caroline Richards think about Anthony's ideas?" Reread her journal. Underline one sentence that hints at Richards' point of view. So the first little passage or paragraph is from Village Life in America by Caroline Cowells Richards. December 20th, 1855. Susan B. Anthony is in town and spoke in Bemis Hall this afternoon. She had a large audience and talked very plainly about our rights and how we ought to stand up for them, and said the world would never go right until the woman had just as much right to vote and rule as the men. She asked us all to come up and sign our names, who would promise to do all in our powers to bring about that glad day when equal rights should be the law of the land. A whole lot of us went up and signed the paper. I could not make grandmother agree with her at all, and she said we might better all of us stayed home. The next passage is U.S. Marshal Arrest Anthony. Now, Anthony is Susan B. Anthony from the first passage. So, in the first passage, Susan B. Anthony was trying to fight for rights of women and trying to get people to sign a petition to make sure that they fought for the rights of women. All right. Now, this is when she gets arrested. Rochester, New York. Susan B. Anthony was arrested at her home on Madison Street on November 28th. She was charged with the crime of illegal voting. On November 1st, Miss Anthony, her 3 sisters, and 11 other Rochester women registered to vote at a local barber shop. At first, election inspectors refused. Then, Miss Anthony threatened to take the inspectors to court and sue them for a large sum of money. Finally, the election supervisor agreed to allow the women to register to vote in Rochester's 8th Ward. 4 days later, Anthony and the other women voted in the 1872 presidential election. A poll watcher who observed the election process filed a complaint about Miss Anthony's actions. William Storrs acted on the complaint. He ordered Miss Anthony's arrest on November 14th. Mr. Storrs also ordered the arrest of the other women and the election inspectors. So in the first passage, it's all about empowering women to get the right to vote. In the second passage, they're all getting arrested. And not only are the women getting arrested, but right here it says that the election inspectors were arrested as well. So the people who allowed them to even register to vote were also arrested for allowing them to register to vote. We have 2 more accounts of the same topic, which is women's right to vote. The first one is very short. Rochester Union and Advertiser, November 3rd, 1872. Oh, I forgot to read the closed reader habit, which says, what do the editorial writer and Anthony think about whether a woman trying to vote is a crime? Reread the editorial and the speech. Underline the sentences that express their point of views. Citizenship no more carries the right to vote than it carries the power to fly to the moon. If these women in the 8th Ward offer to vote, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. So this person's point of view is saying, even if you're a citizen, that doesn't mean you get the right to vote. And these women who are trying to vote should be prosecuted. They should be put to jail and be punished for their crimes. The last passage from On Women's Right to Vote by Susan B. Anthony herself, June 19, 1873. Friends and fellow citizens, I stand before you tonight under indictment for the alleged crime of having voted at the last presidential election without having a lawful right to vote. It shall be my work this evening to prove to you that in thus voting, I am not only committed no crime, but instead simply exercise my citizens' rights guaranteed to me and all United States citizens by national constitution, beyond the powers of any state to deny. So Susan B. Anthony is saying that she did nothing wrong, that the Constitution says any U.S. citizen can vote, so she has broken no law, and the states can't arrest her for that because the Constitution is the national constitution, not the states for decide, but the nation. The preamble of the federal Constitution says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America." It was we, the people, not we, the white male citizens, nor yet we, the male citizens, but we, the whole people, who formed the Union. And we formed it, not to give the blessings of liberty, but to secure them, not to the half of ourselves and the half of our prosperity, but to the whole people, women as well as men. So she's saying, when it says here, we the people, everybody who's in the United States has that right to vote, not just the white citizens and not just the white male, or not just the male citizens. Now that we have read all four passages about women's right to vote, we're going to answer the questions on page 240 and 241. The first question says, which statement best describes the difference in how Anthony's attempt to vote is presented in the article U.S. Marshal Arrests Anthony and Anthony's speech on women's right to vote? So we're looking at the U.S. Marshal Arrest article and on women's right to vote. So if we go back to those two articles, the U.S. Marshal Arrest Anthony is all talking about how Susan B. Anthony got arrested, those other women got arrested, and even the election inspectors got arrested. On women's right to vote, this is Susan B. Anthony's account of she should not be arrested. She didn't do anything wrong, and the Constitution protects her from that. So which statement best describes the differences in those two? The article writer thinks Anthony's attempt to vote was a criminal, but Anthony thinks her act was not a crime. The article writer thinks Anthony's attempt to vote was brave, but Anthony does not think she acted bravely. The article writer supports Anthony's attempt to vote without taking sides, but Anthony reports that she committed a crime. The article writer does not say whether Anthony's attempt to vote was right or wrong, but Anthony says her act was not a crime. So the correct answer on that one should have been letter D. The article just talks about them getting arrested. Talks about the facts. It doesn't say if she was right or wrong, just talks about the facts and that she was arrested. But Anthony says that she didn't do a crime because the Constitution says everybody in the United States can vote. Now we need a detail from the article and one from the speech that support the answer we just chose. So the first three come from the article. Then Miss Anthony threatened to take the inspectors to court and sue them for a large sum of money. On November 1st, Miss Anthony, her 3 sisters, and 11 other Rochester women registered to vote at a local barbershop. He ordered Miss Anthony's arrest on November 14th. Which of those 3 supports this answer that the article writer does not say whether Anthony's attempt to vote was right or wrong? You should have chose letter B. It's just telling that their sisters were arrested. It doesn't say if they were right or wrong. Now we also need a detail from the other story on women's right to vote. We need a detail that supports Anthony says her act was not a crime. It shall be my work this evening to prove to you that thus voting I not only committed no crime, but instead simply exercised my citizens' rights. It was we the people, not we the white male citizens, nor yet we the male citizens, but we the whole people who formed the Union. And we formed it not to give the blessings of liberty, but to secure them, not to the half of ourselves and the half of our prosperity, but to the whole people, women as well as men. So which of those support that she did not commit a crime? Should have been letter D, because it says, I not only committed no crime, but just exercised my right to vote. So she's saying right there, I didn't commit a crime, and I'm going to prove it to you. On page 241, you have details in a box, and you're asked to put them in the correct spot on the chart. So the details say, supports claims with quotes from the Constitution, addresses fellow citizens, includes information about the poll watcher's complaint, describes voting in a presidential election, tells how other women were arrested. And we're either going to put those details in the U.S. Marshal column, in the women's right to vote column, or if that detail describes both accounts, then it should go in the both column. So there are two details that are just for the U.S. Marshal's arrest Anthony column. Those two details should include information about the poll watcher's complaint and tells how other women were arrested. So that was these two details here. You need to make sure that you write in this side of the chart. There was only one detail that came in both stories, and that was describes voting in a presidential election, which was this detail here. Since we just used these two details and this detail, process of elimination should tell you that these two details will go in the Anthony story, or the women's right to vote story, which was by Susan B. Anthony. Supports claims with quotes from the Constitution, yes, she did that, and addresses fellow citizens. She is addressing the people to support herself and defend herself. If you need to pause the video to get those written down, go ahead and pause it. For our short response, it says, compare the points of view expressed in the journal entry, the editorial, and the speech on the topic of women voting. Use details from your point of view organizer to develop your response. Use the space provided on page 243 to write your answer. So far, we have used the article and Anthony's speech. But here, we are asked to use the journal entry, the editorial, and the speech. So we're asked to use three of the four passages or little paragraphs that we read. This was her speech, and this was the journal entry. Both are saying that women have the right to vote. This one is Caroline Richards is saying that women have the right to vote because she's listening to Susan B. Anthony and she's wanting to sign the petition. And this one is actually Susan B. Anthony quoting the Constitution saying why women have the right to vote. So both of those talk about women having the right to vote. The journal entry and the speech express similar points of view, but the editorial expresses a different one. In the journal, Richards says that she could not make grandmother agree with Anthony's ideas about women voting, suggesting that Richards, unlike her grandmother, agrees with those ideas. Anthony believes women should vote, stating that she exercised rights that no state could take away. The editorial, in contrast to both the journal entry and the speech, states that women who vote should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. So the speech and the journal entry are both saying that women have the right to vote, and they agree with that. But the editorial is saying, no, women don't have the right to vote, and anybody who's a woman and tries to vote should be prosecuted. It's the same topic, women's voting, but it's different people's perspective or different people's points of view. If you have any questions on today's workbook pages, please email me.